All right. Good evening, everybody. Today is January 11th, 2022, and this is a Oregon City Commission work session, and we are honored to have our Planning Commission join us tonight for a joint Planning and City Commission work session. And with that, Mr. Wiley, will you kick us off with the roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Present.
Commissioner Denise McGriff?
Present.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Here.
Mayor Rachel Lau Smith?
Here.
And for the Planning Commission, Commissioner Patty Gage?
Here.
Commissioner Chris Staggs? Appears to be absent. Commissioner Greg Stoll?
Here.
Commissioner Daphne West?
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Here.
Commissioner Bob LaSalle?
Here.
And Chair Dirk Schlagenhofer?
Here.
All right. I think we're outnumbered, y'all. I feel outnumbered. So who's taking this? Mr. Conkle or Aquila, are you starting?
Yeah, I'll introduce it. Good evening. First, I would like to introduce our planning manager. I'm not sure if you've had the pleasure of meeting Teresa Montalvo. This is week 3, I think. So we're very pleased to have her, and I will let her kind of kick off the rest of the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Aquila, and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you heard, Teresa Montalvo, I am new to the city. However, the project I bring to you tonight has been in the process for about 2 years. We kicked off the visioning in the summer of 2020. And since that time, there has been a robust public engagement process that has informed the draft goals and policies for the comprehensive plan that's before you this evening. Our goal this evening is really to get your initial feedback with regards to whether we're on the right track, and that these goals and policies, with these goals and policies prior to the next phase of our public outreach process. With that, I'd like to introduce our consultant on the project, Anais Mathis with 3J Consulting. She is joining via Zoom, and she will be conducting the presentation this evening.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I will also introduce my colleague, Sarah Breakstone from OTAC. She is also part of the project team and will be helping me with this presentation. I presume I have the ability to share my screen, so I will go ahead and do so. Okay, my hope is that everyone can see that.
Yes,
Great.
we can.
Do you see all the videos at the bottom, or is that just on my screen?
Yes, we do. We see all the videos on the bottom.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening. We're really excited to be before you tonight. A lot has happened since we have looped back with you last July, I think, was the last joint work session that we had to present the draft community vision. So quite a lot of stuff has happened since then. I'm going to run through a couple of slides and then turn it over to Sarah and then wrap us up. And then we will turn it over to discussion and comments and questions. As Teresa mentioned, a couple of just general meeting objectives or objectives of this presentation. First, I'm going to just share a little bit about what we did between the last time we were in front of you in July and tonight. So review some of the outreach and the engagement activities that happened over the last couple of months. That were informative for developing the draft goals and policies for the comprehensive plan. And then the second part of the objective tonight is to review the draft goal statements with you and vet those policy ideas. We're really here, it's a lot of content to go through, and we're really here to just make sure that we're focusing on the ideas, not necessarily the wordsmithing, and really focusing on some of the key questions such as, did we capture anything? Are there any ideas that are missing? And of those ideas that may be missing, are they suited to a comp plan, or are they suited to an action plan or an implementation strategy? So some things to keep in the back of your mind as we run through some of the concepts. A quick briefing on the project schedule. As Teresa mentioned, it's been an ongoing project. The visioning work took a while and it was really, really robust. We adopted the OC 2040 community vision statement this summer. And since then we've been in the comp plan phase. So that started in July and we're about 2/3 of the way through. Those red little stars on the screen just indicate the PAT meetings that we've had so far. That's your project advisory team made up of nearly 30 different community interests and organizations. And we are nearing the finish line in this phase before we go through the adoption proceedings for the draft comprehensive plan. So, moving from the vision to the comprehensive plan. So moving down a level in terms of detail and scope of the comprehensive plan. So once we adopted the Oregon City 2040 community vision, we had identified a series of themes, 4 key themes. We developed comprehensive plan summits, a series of summits with the community that were held throughout the months of September and October. City staff also opened their doors after those comp plan series for coffee and comp plan activity that also allowed further in-person engagement with city staff if anybody wasn't able to attend any of the summits or wanted to have some follow-up discussions. We also had a community-wide online survey, and then we also had our project advisory team quite looped in to the development of the goals and policy concepts that you see here before you. So all of these activities were really geared towards honing down on the key topics and key themes associated with each of the 4 categories below on your screen. So the 4 themes, as you may recall, are healthy and welcoming community, diverse economy, connected infrastructure, and protected environment. So those are the 4 key themes that really are going to shape your comprehensive plan. A quick briefing on the summits. I will say they were very well attended. We had them organized different days and different times of day over the course of 4 weeks. We also had a really exciting Facebook Live event at the beginning of each summit. It was run with Sita Connelly. She is, as some folks like to call her, kind of the Latino Oprah. And so she ran some Facebook Live events to help promote the summits and get some Spanish-speaking community members involved in this work. We also, the city staff, did a lot of good work in pushing out these activities through social media, e-blasts through the listservs, as well as our interested parties list. All this information about these activities were posted to the website, and we also developed some PAT stakeholder e-blasts that they can send out among their own networks to help promote these outreach activities. Just a quick little snapshot of our Zoom meetings. We also had live Spanish interpretation at each of these 4 summits. We had a couple of Spanish-speaking community members that joined us as we started discussing each of the topic areas. So that was very exciting to just have a really diverse group of folks in the room. And then we also had an online survey, as I had mentioned, to review some of the key ideas that came from the discussions that we had at each of these 4 summits. So we really tried to design an iterative process throughout the comprehensive plan portion of this work. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to help run us through all of the content that was included in that very large packet for all of you that I hope everyone was able to at least take a look at. So Sarah, here you are. I will run the PowerPoint for you.
Thanks, Anais. And again, my name's Sarah Breakstone. I'm with OTAC. I've been part of the project team for, I guess, about the last year or so. So we have developed draft goal and policy language for the comp plan update, which hopefully you've had a chance to review in a little more detail because our presentation tonight is going to be pretty brief. Just to give you a sense of comparison, the existing comp plan has 65 goals and 289 policies. And for the OC 2040 update, we have drafted 15 goals and about 78 policies. And I tell you that just to provide some context for the level of streamlining that we were aiming for, and to emphasize that these goals and policies are really intended to be high-level guiding statements and not more detailed action or implementation items. That said, there's still a lot of content to cover. And since this is the first time looking at this with this group, we just, again, want to remind you that we're seeking initial feedback on the concepts, and there will be additional opportunity to offer comments in a more detailed format moving forward. And Anais will talk about what that opportunity or what those opportunities are at the end of our presentation. So we put this graphic up just quickly. You may have seen this in July, just to remind this group of sort of the main components of the OC 2040 comp plan, the vision, goals, and policies. The vision, which the city adopted last year, really provides that aspirational, overarching statement for how the community wants Oregon City to be in the future, how they want Oregon City to look in the future. And then the goals are really more broad statements of purpose that define what the community wants to achieve. And each goal has a set of policies that help to further define a specific course of action that can be taken to meet those goals. And then the action items or the implementation items are really the tools or the approaches that the city will use to achieve those policies and those goals. And those are not part of the comprehensive plan. The city commission over time will direct policies and programs to implement the plan, but they're not part of the plan itself. So just a reminder about that. A quick note about all of the sort of different inputs that we use to draft the initial set of goals and policies. We were, of course, looking at your existing comp plan goals and policies, reviewing those. There was still, some usable and very relevant language in there, and we didn't want to lose that. We, of course, were reviewing all of the various feedback that we got from the different community outreach efforts, especially and most importantly, feedback that we got from our project advisory team, our PAT, and reviewing best practices and what we know about sort of the best way to go about creating policy, and looking at all of that through the lens of the vision statement and making sure that the goals and policies that we develop are fully supporting the vision statement. So with that, we will run through the goals here fairly quickly. I'm not going to try to touch on all of the policy concepts that come underneath each goal, because that's just a lot of content to try to talk at you. But we will review them, and the policy concepts are up there and you can kind of read through them. So, excuse me, under the Healthy and Welcoming Communities theme or chapter, there are 4 primary goals. Excuse me again. These goals emphasize creating and supporting a diverse and inclusive community engagement program, protecting and acknowledging the historic and cultural resources in Oregon City, ensuring safe, healthy, and comfortable neighborhoods, and integrating diversity, equity, and inclusive approaches into, city programs and operations. Can you go on to the next one? Thanks. 1 second. So under diverse economy, there are, again, 4 primary goals. These goals really focus on creating a dynamic, ecologically sound, and socially equitable economy, providing a diverse range of housing options for all residents to meet the needs of all residents, Maintaining an urban growth boundary that complies with state law and provides for the sort of efficient and logical expansion of the city as it grows, and incorporating sustainable site design and construction practices into city projects and operations. Next slide, please. Under connected infrastructure, again, 4 primary goals. These goals emphasize safe and equitable multimodal transportation systems, maintaining and improving public facilities and infrastructure, and ensuring the health and safety, public health and safety through provision of comprehensive services, and emphasis on resiliency and climate change or energy conservation. And last but not least, protected environment has 3 primary goals, providing a robust and evenly distributed system of trails, parks, and recreational amenities across Oregon City, maintaining the function, health, and diversity of natural resources and ecosystems, and mitigating natural hazard risk and managing rapid response and recovery. So, as you've likely noticed, there is some natural overlap between these 4 themes and their goal statements. And hopefully, as you read the full text of the goals and the full text of the policy statements, the nuances and distinctions become a little bit clearer, and it seems less like direct overlap and more like continuity, if that makes sense. I think with that, I'll turn it back over to Anais. I'm sorry, Anais, are we taking questions now and discussion, or are we waiting till the end of the presentation altogether?
We're almost finished, so why don't we wrap up and then we can kind of open up the floor to comments and reflections.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for running us through very high level some of the content that's in front of you tonight. So just quickly before we do kind of open up the floor, just wanted to let everyone know that we just launched yesterday a comprehensive plan forum that it's online. It's available through www.oc2040.com. It's our public online forum that allows the community to review the draft goal statements and the policy concepts. This will be live for about the next 6 weeks or so. There's quite a bit of happenings at the city in the next month or so. You have city staff that will be out and about presenting this work to all the various committees, groups, and organizations. So while that is ongoing, we will have this online forum available to collect additional input while the goals and policies are being reviewed by various departments and committees, et cetera. So please do suggest that everyone go check out the comp plan forum that is linked through the OC 2040 website. It's also another opportunity to provide feedback yourselves if you would like to take a look at that and provide comment. But I just wanted to give a little sneak peek to something that just launched and will be there will be a lot of promotion around it for the next 6 weeks or so. So please share among your own networks as well. And then another sneak peek is the actual comprehensive plan document. So the goals and policies that are presented to you this evening are really going to be the heart of this new comprehensive plan. The document itself, we're hoping will look much different than the old document. Right now you see a lot of text, but we're developing a table of contents, and we're really hoping that this document becomes a lot more visual, not nearly as cumbersome or bulky as the previous comprehensive plan document, but as one that is really focused on the goals and policies and really highlighting that content. We'll also have a lot of images, and it'll just be a much more visual document overall. So we're hoping that it'll be easier to navigate both for city staff and the layperson as well. And these are just some examples of what comprehensive plans are kind of looking like these days. They've certainly graduated from the Word document to something much nicer looking. So, So quickly, next steps. So as I mentioned, we do have this virtual comprehensive plan forum that just went live, and it will be live through the duration of time that it takes for city staff to present the draft goals and policies that you're seeing tonight to all of the various city committees. That is going to happen through, or that will probably last through mid-March. We are going to take all of the feedback that we get through all those various presentations, as well as this meeting this evening, as well as the feedback through the comprehensive plan forum. And we are going to revise the goals and policies based on that feedback. But we are planning to have another update for Planning Commission and City Commission at some point in March to report back to you on what we heard from all of these meetings and presentations on the draft goals and policies. So that is it for next steps. I would be happy to open it up to questions or reflections. I know there are several Planning Commission and City Commission members here this evening that are part of our PAT that could also share some insight on that process if there's any questions about that. But we are happy to answer any questions and take down any comments as you see fit. Thank you.
All right, so does staff have anything else to add this time? Looking at Teresa and Quilla, no?
No, nothing further.
Okay. Anybody want to start? I guess I can start. I have one general question. So I'm trying to give you all time to get ready. I'm trying to think about how you're presenting this as goals and policies. I'm thinking in practical sense of when an application comes before the Planning Commission or the City Commission, how we then try to reconcile an application against our comprehensive plan. And so is it, and I could have this wrong, is this list of policies that you have on here, granted they're draft, are those essentially the list of policies that land use applications have to be compliant with? So that matters because I think the wording on here, even though we've just been instructed not to wordsmith these things, I think that really matters. So I'm trying to get clarity on if these are supposed to be high-level policies, because some of these I think get into just a tad bit or the word choice that's being used may make it challenging for us to review land use applications in their compliance with the policy. So I'm trying to reconcile that. Can you help me, Aquila or Teresa, or consultants, whoever?
Yeah, I'll start. And I guess I'd like to hear from Anais and Sarah, since they've been with the project the longest. But I believe that the policies that are in your packet and that we're reviewing are high level. I don't know that they're to the point of refinement where we will be asking applicants to show how they meet these policies or how their application helps implement them. I think that's part of what is to come as the document gets fleshed out. So I want to check that with our consultants and see if that squares up with how they were intending these.
Sarah, did you have some?
Yeah.
Sure. So I want to be clear that we're talking about the policies, the draft policies that are in your packet, not the sort of abbreviated bulleted list that we just were showing in the presentation.
Yes, what's in our packet?
Okay, so if we're talking about what's in the packet, those are intended to be full draft policy statements. So those are the draft policies that, you know, with whatever revisions are needed would be adopted into your comp plan. So yes, those would be the policies that people would be responding to, that applicants would be responding to if they are addressing a criterion that says, show us how you're consistent with the comprehensive plan or the applicable goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. So if they were doing a zone change or, you know, whatever type of application it might be, that's what these are intended to be. Yes. Is that answer the question?
Yes, so I want to ask one more thing. I want practical application here. So on goal 4 of healthy and welcoming communities, we're talking about housing, and it says, number B is ensure housing policies and regulations increase home ownership and rental opportunities for all household sizes, types, and incomes. So if a land use application or something is going before the planning commission or the city commission, but hopefully it stops at planning commission, and they're reviewing something and this policy is in here, would that application have to, provide housing for all housing types, sizes, types, and incomes? I'm just trying to make sure I understand how this policy is written versus application.
So if I were the applicant and I had to demonstrate, compliance with that policy or how I was supporting that policy, and it was a residential subdivision that I was proposing, I think I would probably include a brief statement that talks about, well, this subdivision will provide, 10 townhomes and 15 single family detached homes and 4 apartments, or, whatever the housing types are, the housing type is. And I would probably take a quick peek at the HNA to see what's identified as a needed housing type in Oregon City. And I would point to that and say, we're providing a needing housing type. And I would probably leave it at that. So I think it's kind of often on the applicant to sort of make the demonstration to the best of their ability. And, there's always policies that they're just going to say, hey, this doesn't really apply to us. And that's the end of it.
I think that's what I was going to say too. Remember that this is a document that also serves as the guiding document for the city and what we're trying to achieve. So not every policy or goal might not be applicable to a comprehensive plan amendment or a zone change, depending on what the policy or goal says. So, if the city wants a diverse supply of housing, right? One way to address that is to go through the process of making sure that our housing needs analysis demonstrates where we have deficiencies and that we're trying to write code or do zone changes or comprehensive plans amendments that are driven by the city to accommodate those housing choices. Or we're updating our code to allow different types of housing types, right? So just because it's in the comprehensive plan doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be applicable to every land use application that comes in, because some of these are directed at what we want to do as a city, not necessarily what an applicant can do. If their property is zoned a certain way, right, they can't really control that. We do.
Okay. All right. Somebody else have a question?
I just have a question about your question. I was assuming you were referring to somebody comes in for a comp plan amendment and a zone change. And one of the criteria talks about how does this application meet the city's comprehensive plan goals and policies. And so I totally agree with what was said already, but I kind of don't think what you said, Tony, it applies to us. No, if I'm the applicant and I can show that my housing type is one of the needed in the study, then I would, hopefully they have people that are helping them, but they're going to say, yes, my blah, blah, blah development meets goal, whatever it is, by demonstrating X. And then they'd go through the list because obviously they're going to have a pre-app and the city's going to say, you need to address all the goals and policies as they apply to your application. And if they don't apply, then you need to tell us why they don't apply. You can't just say NA, which is what we get sometimes, as you guys know. That's not a good answer. So I think that just like the comp plan we have currently, it's going to be the same test that someone will have to apply to their particular application. Obviously, if they're not doing housing, they weren't going to answer that question. They're going to say, this is not applicable because I'm doing a commercial development and there's no housing, blah, blah, whatever they're going to say. So
I think where you'd really see it is if you have a deficiency of a certain type, and there's a request to remove even more of that type.
Right. That would be a hurdle for them to have to overcome, which might not be able to be overcome. And I think, and the pre-app staff would say, you're going to have a hard time demonstrating this, and I would think twice about this or whatever the staff says. So that's what I thought you were asking.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Chair Schlagenhofer.
Thank you. The wording on it, I don't know if it matters, but ensure housing policies and regulations increase home ownership and rental opportunities for all sizes, types, and incomes. When we're saying ensure, I mean, we need to guarantee it. And then, how do we weigh the policies that, they're going to be ensuring? I don't know if we can guarantee that our policies are going to be making housing more affordable. I don't think we can guarantee that. So.
Which one are you reading from?
The same one.
Yeah,
the same one. Okay.
Yeah, it's just my interpretation of it is that I don't know if we can ensure our policies will.
I highlighted that word too.
Yeah,
The word
it's a
ensure,
tough word. Maybe highly encourage, drive to,
or support.
But ensure that's a tough one.
I understand what you're saying about the word.
Mike Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I'm going to try to stay out of the wordsmithing. I know we don't want to get into that tonight, but I think there's a substantial amount of that needs to be done in this document. And I guess I have two questions. One is fairly simple, I think. How do we, where are we going to show, I know we're changing the organization of this. It's not organized as per the goals laid out in the state land use goals. So where are we going to show that our plan addresses all of those statewide goals, 1 through 15? That's the simpler question. And then my other question, I think it kind of goes to what Mayor Smith may have been getting at. When I look at this, and maybe I'm just going to have to learn to use the word policy differently, because to me, if you look at our current comprehensive plan and you look at this, policy means something entirely different. The policies in our current comprehensive plan are much more, to me, they're more specific, they're more directional. And I guess I'm struggling as a planning commissioner. How am I going to be able to apply to a real world application these policies that really, to me, read more as goals than policies, and maybe I'm just going to have to get over it and just realize that policy means something different. But these are certain, to me, are very different in terms of providing specific direction compared to what's in our current comprehensive plan. And I don't know if that's a question or a comment or both.
Mike, I'm happy to share a bit of just background information. You hit the nail on the head with where do we see the crosswalk between the statewide planning goals and these theme areas. And so just to let you know, we have, and we've shared with our PAT a number of times, kind of a matrix that helps us map these 4 theme areas to all of the various statewide planning goals to make sure that we've covered all of them. So we do have that content, and that will certainly be part of the comprehensive plan documents, that when you flip to a theme area, you know exactly what the topics are, but you also know exactly what statewide planning goals are being covered from that topic area. And then the second, in reflection on your comment about just the hierarchy of information and how different the level of information or detail this update to the comprehensive plan is, as opposed to your previous one, is, at the very start of this process, we got direction from city staff that the current comprehensive plan is really cumbersome in terms of the amount of information and the number of goals and policies in the comprehensive plan. Generally, also, comprehensive plans are extremely high level. The detail really should come in action plans, implementation strategies, work plans, budgets, things like that, which are your housing needs analysis, your economic development, your your economic opportunities analysis, your TSP, all of these include a lot of factual basis to develop more detailed work plans. And that's where a lot of the finer points should be captured. And then another kind of trend in comprehensive planning right now is moving away from the detail, because these are 20-year planning documents. Sometimes you are seeing implementation strategies caught up in a comprehensive plan. And so when you've kind of checked the mark or done the thing, you have to amend your whole comprehensive plan because you've achieved this strategy or you did this action item. And so the specificity can really trip the kind of 20-year ethos of this document in a way that can be a little bit cumbersome to manage in the long run.
Okay, Daphne.
Following up with what she just said, when you say plan for housing supply with from the recommendations from the current housing needs analysis, I don't know how many years that analysis went out for, but it's just what she's saying. So it's current now, but it doesn't address the future. So there's a goal that feels quite specific when it might really need to be added to, like under goal 1 with the policies here on the economy, regularly update citywide studies. So that's my only thing. This housing needs analysis might change 5 years. So is this specific?
Yeah, I'm torn with not wordsmithing direction, because
Well, okay, so
I've done a bunch
We
of
can leave
highlights
it.
of wordsmithing, so I'm trying to refrain from that. Did you have something else, Daphne?
nope, for now, that's it.
So I have a question. So has the city done the exercise of identifying historically disinvested communities? Is that a task that we're planning to do because we believe we have them and we need to do it?
I'm not sure the answer to that. I don't know if Anais or Sarah know from previous work on OC 2040, but so let me just clarify to make sure I understand what you're asking. Have we done any work to understand what are historically, did you say historically disenfranchised?
Disinvested.
Disinvested, thank you. And I don't know the answer to that, and I'd have to look.
I don't think we have. I guess I want to be careful that we don't get caught up, and this is probably going to be taken wrong. I'm sure I'm going to be criticized for this, but in the political climate of where we are today, Oregon City is very different than Portland or other cities. And I don't want us to just take on language because it's the common thing and it's the PC thing to do. So if the city if you looked into it, I'm sure we can do some analysis in some of these areas, how it's worded. I think it's correct, right? We want equal distribution of parks across the city, right? That's an easy one. But I just want to be careful when we start saying we have historically disinvested communities. I want to know, if we're making that statement, it makes me feel like we know we have historically disinvested communities. So I presume we already know that, and therefore we're making that statement. Otherwise, I want to be careful in stating that. It's one thing to say we want to make sure that everybody in our city has equal access to services, removes barriers to access, all of those good things, which are different statements than saying we have historically disinvested, that we have actionably historically disinvested in communities. So, and I'm talking about just Oregon City specifically. I know it happens elsewhere, and it probably has happened a little bit here or there, but I want to know.
So just to quickly answer the question, I don't know that Oregon City has done any sort of analysis or evaluation to determine what or if those communities exist in Oregon City. I think if that language stays in there, that would obviously become an action item or an implementation item or part of a work plan to support that policy.
Commissioner O'Donnell, you started to say
I like that
something.
you combined our names
I know.
together.
Like O'Donnell, yeah.
Something I should know. I agree with the mayor's position on that wording because it implies that we've identified those enfranchised, disinvested communities, which obviously we have not. So I'd like the more general verbiage. I know we're trying to stay away from wordsmithing, but I also agree with Mr. Mitchell. I mean, there's things in this document that need to be revised.
Commissioner McGriff.
Yes, I wouldn't say that it's your position. I think you're pointing out something as we pointed out earlier when we were talking about we were targeting Latinx community. It's that kind of sentence that we want to be very careful about.
Yeah.
And I would say, based on my experience in Oregon City, we have not identified that, nor can anybody put, a finger on us and say, we have done this as a city, because we have not. And I think, again, consultants, I would probably reword that because, again, it sends the wrong message. And when I saw that myself, it was one of the things I looked and I said, well, I don't think we've done that. And I don't think we can say here, here, and here.
Right.
We're not going to talk about the disinvestment because I don't believe, I guess I would say my belief is I don't believe our community has done that. But we will be looking into communities of color in our community when we embark upon the diversity, equity, and process that we're going to do. But it's not going to be talking about who's been disinvested. I think, again, as you pointed out very clearly, I think there are communities such as the city of Portland where, I'm not trying to blame them or put the finger on them, but from my work I know you're smiling, but my work at Portland Development Commission, we were very aware, the city is very aware where the disinvestment is. And that's something, you can put your finger on. But I think to say generally about other communities in our state, I don't think we can make that claim.
Right.
So it's, again, that's one of those things where we want to be very careful, as you stated, that we are not putting Oregon City in a box because that is the buzzword of the week.
Right. And I kind of feel that way. So again, I know I'm kind of wordsmithing, but it's along the same topic of the public infrastructure in areas that are historically underserved. I think that goal should be that we want to prioritize public infrastructure investments in areas that are underserved. If there's a deficiency in public infrastructure in an area of the city, then absolutely we want to prioritize those. That's different than saying there's a historically underserved neighborhood or community in Oregon City.
We have areas where there's no sidewalks and they've been there. And that's infrastructure that just hasn't gotten there. It's not an underserved community. It's just that there aren't any sidewalks.
So I just kind of wanted to, sorry, I can't, it's hard for me to refrain from wordsmithing, but there's a couple of themes in here. That was one of them that I noticed, and I just want to be really careful with what we're implying when we add the word historically, or when I think our goal is a little bit higher level.
Oregon City's historically something is quite a bit different than any other communities because of our history, not because of disinvestment or that sort of thing.
Right. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with that. And so my first question is, when does the wordsmithing happen? Because having sat on the PAT with Commissioner McGriff since, I joined back in June or July, that has constantly been, this is not the wordsmithing part. So when is the wordsmithing part?
Our red line.
Sarah, or do you have an answer to that question? When is the wordsmithing happening?
So Anais, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, well, I'm remembering a couple different things that we talked about, and I'm not sure where we landed. Are we doing a sort of an online survey for Planning Commission and City Commission, or are we pointing to the forum? Help me out here.
Yeah, there were two opportunities, and I really hear the desire to get into the wordsmithing because I do agree it is, it's where the value is. But we had identified two kind of opportunities. One is obviously to input your comments in a written form via the forum. And then the second is to also, Teresa has offered to have one-on-one meetings with Planning Commission and City Council Commission members as well. So there is an opportunity to have discussions with city staff, and then we can compile all of that information and make those revisions. I will say, we do our very best to take a lot of competing ideas and opinions and just desires. This is a reflection of the PAT. Mike and Denise have been on it as they've mentioned, and have had opportunity to review this content. We've really, really appreciated their feedback through all of that, through all of those meetings. And it is a reflection of what we've been hearing through the community. But I do definitely understand that there's quite a bit of wordsmithing that is naturally going to have to occur through all of the various folks that have their eyes on it. But I guess I just wanted to, a reminder of where it came from, and also just offering city staff and the comp plan forum as two avenues to provide further input, just because we're going to get a lot of it, and we really need to make sure that we're working through all of it in an iterative way and a transparent way as well.
Can I add to that
I
maybe
think we both have comments
sort of
about that.
semi-third option in lieu of a meeting or one-on-one with Teresa, maybe just providing Teresa with a marked up document? Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I think we can do that. So Commissioner Morrell, do you have follow-up? That was your question.
Yes, so I am also a member of the PAT, and I've participated in those written surveys. And so if we're not going to do the wordsmithing now, let's kick it off, at least at a broad level. And so just two very high level things that I have said before and I want to reiterate is that in goal 1 with the healthy and welcoming community, when we're calling out the CIC, I also think that we should be placing importance on the neighborhood associations as well. I know there was something said up from the consultants that we're trying to keep them independent of the city as more independent bodies than actual city committees. But I mean, we're calling out things like the Willamette River and promoting tourism there, but it's not like we own the Willamette River and can decide every single thing that happens there. And then the other one is with the transportation issue. I don't like the word, and sorry to get back into that, but the word equitable for all multimodal transportation. Just given the unique topography of Oregon City, I don't think it is necessary and doable for us to be equitable in our investments there in multimodal transportation. This is something at our last PAT meeting, we had a very long conversation. What does equitable mean? And we brought up those little cartoons that were very popular last year explaining what equitable means. But when it comes to it, I don't think that it would be in the best interest of the city to be saying we're going to be investing in all forms of multimodal infrastructure all the same, because our city is unique in its topography, and that's just not going to work.
Commissioner McGriff?
Yeah, I don't mean to be snobbish about this, but I think what I want to say that the buck is going to stop at the city commission. We're the ones that are going to do the final approval on this. And I think if there are concepts in there or let me back up, not concepts, but there are statements in there like what Mayor Lyle Smith pointed out. I think that we have an obligation as the commission to make sure that those things are corrected. We are not interested in going back in and changing the content or changing the intent of the PAT, because they did a lot of work. But those little things that we may have knowledge of as city commissioners, because again, we're going to be the final ones approving it. So I think the idea is if we see something, let's just mark it up and send it to them. I have appreciated having our discussion about things like that, because one person sees one thing and another person might not see that. And then you think about, oh yeah. So, I mean, I have no problem with us having a brief discussion about some of those broader concepts, because again, I'm worried again, that because we've got a statewide planning program, there's certain languages that are being used throughout all of these documents. And again, my whole goal was, in looking at this, is that this is Oregon City's plan. It's got to fit us. And some of those words don't apply to us as a community. And I want to make sure that we don't have them in there to imply or infer that we are doing X, Y, or Z. So, forgive me for pulling a little rank, but we're going to be the ones that are going to have to approve the final document. So I think we need to step up to the plate. And if we see more of those little things, we need to let those guys know that those can be corrected. It's not changing concepts. It's not changing the intent of it. It's just making it more Oregon City centric is where I wanted to say for us.
Can you hang on one second, Commissioner Smith? Mike Mitchell's had his hand up for a while. I want to try to make sure we get to him. Mike? You're muted.
Sorry. I think this goes beyond wordsmithing. A healthy and welcoming community, both Goal 1 and Goal 4. Goal 1 talks about the community engagement program. Goal 4 talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And both of those specifically talk about in land use decisions, which I think is important. And I'd like to see that stay in the goal. But I think that goal should also be broadened because community involvement and diversity, equity, and inclusion are important in every city activity, not just land use. So, and I'd like to know what the rest of the group thinks. Maybe I'm out on a limb here, but if those were to say in all city activities, including land use decisions and stuff, I think it's still important to call out land use because that's where most people interface with city government, but it's certainly not the only place.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
My comment was just to add on to Commissioner McGriff's comment. I mean, the discussion needs to happen, whether it's at this meeting or whether it's the last meeting where we approve this, because it'll happen one way or another. My hope is it happens earlier than the last meeting.
Please,
before
not the last meeting.
we actually do it, because and I guess if we want this to be truly transparent, that doesn't happen in one-on meetings with commissioners to get what their idea is and then come back to us. That happens in a dialogue. And I answered a couple emails today about one-on meetings about other topics of the city. I don't think that's the right way to do this. We have a conversation up here. We have a wide range of people looking at this from different angles. That's why it works. That's why, some of us catch one thing or another thing, and that spurs the conversation that leads us in the direction we need to go, not getting individual meetings with individual commissioners checking off boxes and saying this is what they thought and this is what they thought, and we don't really know that because we didn't hear it. I don't like that. I think the discussion has to happen. If it happens here or in the next meeting or the last meeting, hopefully not, but it's going to happen.
Please, not the last meeting. Our staff will be committing hara-kiri if we wait till the last meeting.
All right.
Well, I think we got
more
a direction.
Chair Schlagenhofer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time. I need to back up a little bit and get a little clarification on the comp plan in general. I know we have a book of code, but as far as the comp plan, just how much legal weight does the comp plan have as far as policies and how enforceable are they? And the reason I bring that up is because if we're going to be wordsmithing, I need to know how deep dig into that. I'm going to bring up an example, not because it's in Oregon City, but it's something that has came up in Clackamas County. There was an application that the conditional use, it didn't fit in any conditional use. It didn't fit in anything. And the applicant actually went for a comp plan update, try to make it fit that way. And it hadn't been done before, but it was something they were trying. It ended up going a different way now, but it brings the legal question in mind that, if these are considered legally binding policies, how hard do we need to look at them? That was my question. But we don't have anybody from...
I'm confused about, it's your language that an applicant can't apply for a comp plan update. They can apply for an amendment to the conference. Yeah, that's what you mean, amendment? Yeah. They can't do it concurrently with a conditional use permit, though.
No, so they went for an amendment.
Amendment to the comp plan, which is so... My opinion is the comp plan is like our Bible. We're bringing it down from the mountain. We are holding it up with our tablets and going, this is our guiding documents. Everything else is ancillary to that.
Then we should definitely look hard at the wording.
Well, that's why we want to change some of those pedantic statements that, may apply to Eugene or some other place, but don't apply to us. So.
Yeah, but guidelines versus legal criteria, if it's just guidelines, that's why.
It's not a guideline. The comp plan is the Bible.
I think that's where you were going, is like, what is the legal binding nature of these comp plan policies?
Binding. City binding. Let's ask our former community development director.
So if you like, I can start to answer that, and then if there's anyone else who wants to chime in. So the way that the comp plan works is it really informs your code. And so when a land use application comes before you, you're looking at the criteria in the code, and do those support your comp plan policies? And if you have an applicant or there's a legislative change to the comp plan or a zone change, you're usually weighing that against some of the criteria, and that may be too specific, but you're weighing against the policies and goals in the comp plan, and do they meet up? Do they match up? So I guess to the question of, if somebody can't make their application fit a particular zone, and so then they try to change the comp plan, you're still looking at a comp plan designation to say, does this meet our criteria for changing a comp plan designation? I'm not sure I can answer specifically which of those has more legal weight, because I think it depends on what is happening and what an applicant or city is trying to do. But they can both be reviewed in, for instance, like a LUBA appeal. So they can come into that review at that point.
You can deny an application based on the comprehensive plan policies if the commission finds that they're not being met. So
Absolutely.
I guess they are part, if it's part of the land use process for the consideration of an application, then they do need to be reviewed. But like Aquila was saying, kind of think of it as the big picture, right? Our goals and our policies. And then out of this update are probably going to become areas of the code that we're going to need to update to implement them. Because not every application, it's actually pretty rare that you get into applications that get into comp plan policies, because most of our applications are dealing with subdivisions or commercial buildings, right, where we have code that implements the comprehensive plan. So really, it's like the example we were talking about earlier in terms of we want a wide variety of housing, right? So if someone, let's just say we have a property that's zoned R2 high density residential, our housing needs analysis says we're deficient in multifamily housing. The applicant says, well, I'd like to take my 20 acres and turn it into R10 single family detached. So I need a comprehensive plan amendment from high density to low density, and I need a zone change from R2 to R10, right? So then we'd go through this process, right? And if that criteria that addresses we know we have a deficiency, how are we going to address that? Are we going to do a land swap? Are they going to provide ADU? I mean, there's, who knows what the answer to that could be, right? But that's how you would apply a policy in terms of a land use application. So I'm not sure if that helps, but I mean, at the end of the day, they can be used to approve and deny an application.
Okay. Mr. Stoll.
I can just try and sum up what I've gathered from that. The comprehensive plan becomes more important and more applicable as the criteria becomes more subjective. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's designed that way. We don't want everybody coming in every 5 minutes and saying, oh, I'm going to change the comp plan. No, not after all this work we've done. We don't want people nickel and diming it to death.
All right, so we're at our time. So everybody be thinking of your last final comments. For Teresa, who's taking copious notes over there, I'll give you the couple of items that I have highlighted to follow up on. In the healthy and welcoming community, the goal 1, the policies where it talks about seeking opportunities to develop and enhance relationships with community-based organizations who are working in Oregon City and the larger region. My question is the words "and the larger region." I'm not sure why we're trying to enhance relationships with community-based organizations who are not working in Oregon City. For example, I don't want to be talking to a community-based organization that's out of Portland and only working in Portland. Again, 2 different perspectives. I just want to make sure that we're focused on Oregon City. If you can provide another explanation offline, that's fine. We can circle back on that. For diverse economy, we have a policy in there that says we're going to provide affordable childcare opportunities. I think the word provide is too strong. I don't believe the city is getting into the business of providing childcare in the city, and so I have issue with the word provide, the same as we mentioned. We have issue with the word ensure. And then for connected infrastructure, I get concerned, goal 3, we're talking about public facilities and services. I get concerned we have a goal that says ensure adequate funding to pay for public facilities and services. I just have questions. What does that mean? I think we could say that about everything in the city, that we need to ensure adequate funding. So I want to know what the basis of that is. What are we trying to achieve with that? Because I question that the way that's phrased in there. And then last but not least, at the very end, protected environment, goal 3 is talking about unsafe areas. The way that goal is written about restricting development in unsafe areas and where development would increase hazard impacts, and it includes such as steep slopes, landslides, wetlands, streams, and floodplains. So the existence of wetlands and streams is not a natural hazard. Floodplains, yes. Landslides, yes. Slopes, yes. But wetlands and streams are not a hazard, a natural hazard. And I'm a little uncomfortable with the way it's worded of saying unsafe areas. So I'm not sure what the correct wording should be. I just think we need to give some thought to how that's worded.
I think it's just a different word. I think I understand what they were trying to get at, but yeah. Because a stream area could be unsafe. I mean, there are people who've had streams and all of a sudden they become a raging, a larger thing because they've outgrown their banks and they flood people. So that could be considered unsafe. But yeah, you're right. The word just needs to be tweaked.
All right. Any other final comments? Sorry, I came prepared with like 4 pages of highlights. And when she said, we're not wordsmithing, I was like, oh, I was trying to hold back. Bob, you've been quiet tonight. Do you have anything?
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is, I've been a community member of this whole process from the start, and I have never seen the amount of community outreach that they've tried to accomplish on this, and that includes the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. I thought they did a lot of community outreach on that, but it doesn't even come close to what people have tried to accomplish with this. So I just want to offer my kudos for their efforts in that area.
Okay. All right. Anything else from staff on this before we adjourn?
Just quickly, I just want to assure that we heard what you said about wordsmithing and that you want to get a chance before the end. And I completely agree with that. I don't think we want to wait till the end. So Teresa and I will go back and look at the schedule and look at what we can do to bring something back to both commissions to give you that opportunity so that we can start working that in so that when we get to the end, we're all on the same page.
Was this helpful for the planning commissioners to kind of be in the same room, this joint session, or you're fine on your own, or thoughts? I mean, I thought it was good, but he nods.
I'm going to ask for permission to put somebody on the spot just a little bit.
Well, I want to hear from the planning commissioners. For when they bring this back, I'm putting you guys on the spot. Are you thinking this format works for you, or you like to dig in, you need to dig in a little bit deeper, or?
I appreciate working together with you guys, because it needs to work, it needs to be done as a citywide effort. So being able to work with you, kind of understand better what you're concerned with, and then our technical side of what are we legally promising here. So yeah, I have no objections to it. I think it works great. So, but I'm just one.
You won't hurt my feelings if you say no, but I realize I did really put you guys on the spot. So Daphne, were you going to say anything?
Well, I was going to say that it would be nice to, or would have been nice to look at this with Planning Commission separately, but I can respect that it really doesn't matter because we all have to get to the same point anyway with it. So I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but so that works to a joint one again. It's been helpful tonight.
Commissioner McGriff?
Yes, so you didn't hear from one planning commissioner. I'm looking at you, Patty. You got to unmute.
I don't have a lot to add. So I think that everything that has been discussed tonight have all been good points. I do agree it does need a lot of wordsmithing, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of joint effort to do that. Other than that, that's all I have to say.
All right, Mike Mitchell.
Unmute.
You muted yourself.
I'm going to have to remember the difference between mute and unmute. I hit the button and did it the wrong direction. I apologize. I think it was helpful to do it together. I think it's always good to get face-to-face on this, or Zoom-to-face, whatever you call it. If I can just throw in one more real quick thing, Healthy and Welcoming Communities, Goal 2C, where it talks about historic preservation programs. I would like to see somewhere in there the McLaughlin and Kenema districts spelled out, specifically housing in those districts. I don't think locally designated historic districts really covers it, especially since one of them is not locally designated. It's a national designation. But I think we need to recognize specifically the historic preservation in those two districts and mention them by name.
Okay. Yeah, that's similar to what Commissioner Morrow was saying. If we can call out some specifics in one area, there are some areas that probably need some specifics. This may be one of them. All right. And with that, we're a little over on time. So thanks to the Planning Commission for sticking with us and walking through this, and for staff, we appreciate it. And that this meeting is adjourned.